something pops up on Pyramid Cricket. If you're watching and you've managed to find the link, congratulations. If you're watching this after and we're just fanning around trying to keep things going while we see if we appear on YouTube, again, apologies. We're trying. And we are live. Yes, we are. So there you go. We are live. Excellent. So welcome. My name is Neil Harvey. I'm from Whatley Cricket Club. And this is, no, that way, Ian Davis.
Yeah, Norcross Cricket Club.
We have been asked to do the Pyramid Pod. For those of you with very long memories, you may remember a few years ago that we had a podcast that we did for the Palace Shield called the PS Pod. That died a death. We're hoping this one won't. So yeah, we're live. We're hoping to make this a regular thing. We're going to keep this first one light. I'm going to keep my eye on the chat that's there, so that's fine. And we're going to do a loose running order, Ian, I think you would say, in terms of the structure of this initial podcast. And obviously, a large proportion of it is going to be looking forward to what we all hope is going to be a sun-laden 2025 season, the first under the pyramid structure.
Yes, the Northern Pyramid, the Toblerone of local cricket. It's interesting because talking to quite a few people that I saw it was Colin Dorber's funeral today, and obviously spoke to a lot of players and umpires and members of the committee, etc. Obviously, it's the restructuring, the pyramid, the changes, the merger, whatever you want to call it, of that structure will be interesting. But I think everybody was just so happy that cricket's happening. There's been lots of friendlies. We've even played friendlies at our ground, which is usually a boating lake at this time of year. So I think it's just been a great start, in so much as the weather has helped everybody, those working on the grounds, and it's been a really positive start. And obviously the changes that they brought in, obviously the Northern League has started in the form of the cup competition, which is a league stage in its first stage, and then I think they get down to the last 8, and then they play knockout cricket. So it's just great to be the season has sprung up very quickly, and here we are again.
Absolutely, and as I say, we all look forward to usually cold and wet April, and then we had some lovely weather, so it's very strange. We're hoping for the same come Saturday. Just a brief running order. We're going to have a look at the new structure. Again, pretty brief overview of it and what's changed. We're then going to go into the season preview, should I say, looking at all divisions across Northern League and Palace Shield. Obviously, as Ian said, there has been some Northern League Cup matches already, and we'll integrate looking at those into our preview of the Northern League, and we'll cover some of those off as we're looking at both Northern League 1 and Northern League 2. And then we're going to have a look at some other stuff from the league, things like Interleague, Women and Girls League. And we're going to touch, as Ian said, on the sad passing of Colin Dorber at the end, and we'll have a quick chat about that. So we'll go into the first part of it, which is the new structure, and obviously the merger with the Northern League's been going for a while now, but over the winter there's been many discussions backwards and forwards about introducing Northern League 2, which is then obviously mean more restructures for the Palace Shield, Prem, and renumbering, which has caused much mirth and merriment when people have been promoted from one division and ended up in the same numerical division the season after. But it's all fun and games. But in terms of introducing Northern League 2, Ian, and obviously the restructuring of the Prem and moving of teams around, it's created this pyramid that we're named after. So your thoughts on that initially?
I think it had to happen. I think we got a situation with the promotion and relegation into the Northern League where it was sometimes a bit of a step too far, whereas the Division 2, gives people that sort of graduated stepping stone, and you're not falling back into the Prem. Obviously, it's interesting that it's gone down to 10 teams, 2 divisions of 10, which means that they've got 5 weeks of cup games before they start the season on the 24th of May. I think it is 18 games.
Yep.
So they've obviously got to fill that time. I was lucky enough to be at Fleetwood Carnforth on Saturday. So I think talking to a lot of the players and players at other clubs, not just Fleetwood and Carnforth, I think initially they thought, oh well, it's what we're going to do, this sort of cup thing, and there might be alternative views, but I think they've kind of looked forward to it. They're getting into the season, they're playing games, and it's a serious competition. And then obviously they'll start the Red Bull stuff on the 24th. But one tradition of the Northern League is obviously playing on bank holidays as well, so they didn't want to impact on that, because it's obviously quite a big, possibly bringing a few quid for clubs. It's quite a special day. It gives me a chance to go and watch as well, and get not doing DIY and stuff. So it's it's handy. But what it meant for the Palace Shield, and obviously there was a special general meeting about promotion and relegation and what teams can get promoted into the Prem. If there are second teams that are good enough, should they be playing in the Prem?
Yeah.
Because you find your level, and if they're good enough, they should be doing that. Obviously, you can't have 2 teams from the same club in the same division. So there's rules in place there. But there was a lot of traditionalists who wanted to keep the Palace Shield Prem for first teams only, and that's essentially what's happened.
Yeah.
Now, whether or not something comes in at the end of this year that goes towards the AGM that reviews what we've done this year and maybe has another look at that, I don't know. But it was, for some it was a bit it was a good thing to do, and for others it was a little controversial.
I think you've touched on something I was going to say there, in terms of maybe by the AGM there'll be a clearer picture. Looking at the divisions, as I've done in the build up to this discussion, I think it is going to be clear. It's probably going to need maybe 2 or 3 years for everybody to find their place. And ultimately, when people do start finding their place, and if second teams, and I don't want to use the word bottleneck because I know that was used a little bit in the discussions, but where teams end up will probably dictate ongoing discussions throughout the league, and how the league structure evolves moving forward from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're always going to get. We had this, if you remember, when obviously there was we had Division 1 and Division 1A, and we had that for a while, and there were pros and cons to that. But what we can say is that it's evolving. It's not staying stagnant. It's there's a lot of demand, not only from the ECB and other areas, but also from the players, because it does give you the opportunity to stay at your club and potentially reach the top division. So you don't necessarily I'm gonna have to leave whatever club it is to go to another club in order to progress. There is that opportunity, especially for young players, to stay with their clubs should they want to do that. Obviously they're, as amateurs, they're free to go wherever they want to play. They can go and play in the Liverpool comp if necessary. But yeah, I think people will find the place. I think I'm with you in that I would like it to sort of have this season and have another season and review where we're at with it, because I think it might take a couple of years just to settle down, just see where everybody is, and how that pans out. But of course, should people want to, they can put things into the AGM for discussion for the clubs to decide.
Absolutely, and as I say, I'm sure there will be numerous opinions, and there already has been opinions stated on the structure. But I'm with you again in terms of I felt that the restructure had to happen, and you've only got to look at other leagues around us that are, there is no flow between first and second team players. The top division is pretty much a closed shop, and I think the Palace Shield, speaking from a Palace Shield perspective, because as I've discussed on other podcasts, whilst I know the Northern League, I've never experienced it as a player. But in terms of the Palace Shield's always been very progressive, and I think the link up with the Northern League, first of all, had to happen. And I think this is just a natural progression now to creating a pyramid structure, but one with flow. And as I say, I genuinely think, like you, that it might take a couple of seasons for that flow to be regulated in the right way. But the steps being made now.
I mean, you make a good point with regards to what we were talking about before, where second teams can play. The difficulty with that as well is if you limit where a second team can play, second teamers are then required to play, say, in the top division of the Northern League. There's quite a gap. So, that's a bit of a step up. It's a bit like if you've got a team in Division 1 and a team in Division 7.
Yes.
When you're bringing in players from that Division 7 team, no disrespect to them, it's a big step up. It's a big ask. So it can cause some issues. So maybe there's some way of looking at that so that gap isn't as vast.
Yeah. Just so that on the structure, everybody's had that discussion over the winter. We're not going to drag that out any further than we have done. Just a couple of things that Ian mentioned before we came live that I'd completely forgotten about, and in terms of rule changes and stuff. But Northern League is now win-lose. None of this crazy time cricket malarkey, which I know, again, will probably have caused much discussion within the Northern League, and some like it and some don't. But decision's been made, and it's win-lose now. Duke's ball coming in, which will be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I believe the balls that they were using in the cup. I say that, but the pink balls that they were using in the cup game on Saturday, I think they were the same balls as last year.
Right.
I don't know if that's the official position, but that was what happened. And in fact, one had to be changed fairly early on, and of course, very few spares knocking about with it being early season. But like in our cup competitions where it used to be, a new ball from each end, that has changed for us. So that'll be interesting to see how that ball sort of ages and what have you. But yeah, they've gone to win-lose cricket, but they've gone with a bonus point situation, which was in the Palace Shield, we're obviously used to, and there's points for run rates, and then percentages. When you percentage when you batting second, a point for 70, 2 points for 80, 3 points for 90, I think it is, and again bowling 5, 7, and all out. So it's very similar in regards to what we're playing. And I suppose then you've got that continuity. If you have got somebody that's playing those rules, I know they're not playing exactly the same playing rules, then at least you've got that sort of continuity. I mean, I'm a bit old school. I used to love the losing draw. We'd dog it out a few times and get absolute verbals as we're sort of trying to defend. I remember me and Rick Pete batted out about 15 overs at Thornton Cleveley's one year, and there was plenty of comments, but we loved it. There's an art in that. I always say, well, if somebody's good enough to bowl you out, they get all the points. I can fully understand why they've gone to win-lose cricket. It's what we did in the Palace Shield many years ago. So good luck to them. Yeah,
I think that's a key word, what you said, Ian, continuity. I think that goes across everything we're discussing here, really, in creating that continuity across the league. So the other thing's been introduced this year, which we're going to touch on in detail, but obviously a women and girls league has been introduced across the league this year. It's a first for the league. It's been obviously developed through Lancashire Cricket over the last few years, and now they're encouraging leagues to form their own divisions within the league, and the league have progressed to that. So that's good to see, isn't it? Again, more continuity, more progression.
It is. The game's growing, and it's really good to see. I believe there's 4 competitions. I think there's 30 overs hardball, and there's a Sunday T20 competition, which will dovetail with all the other Sunday action. Those people doing the grounds will be busy and be thankful of that. And I think there's hardball and softball Super 8s, I think it is. So that's really good. I know there's a big ramp up, if you will, for interleague girls cricket as well. And that was one of the things that I went to the meeting at Lancashire, which is sort of a feedback meeting for interleague in the autumn. And they were stressing again, Lancashire's desire to get leagues, pyramids and what have you to increase the the female only products, if you will, for want of a better term, and provide that opportunity. So that's really good to see.
Yeah, well done to all the clubs within the league that are really trying to progress women and girls cricket. It is the amount of clubs doing it now is growing rapidly. So well done to everyone, and hopefully that's a roaring success. Well, let's crack on into about 9 divisions worth of a preview to do here, Ian. So we've said we're going to try and keep it not too in depth. We're going to look at the key movers and shakers across each division, looking at some player movement and overseas players, but we're not going to drag this out too long. We don't want anybody to fall asleep halfway through. So Northern League 1 teams in there. I'll quickly run through them, and then we'll have a look at some of the results from the weekend, and again, key people in there, Ian. Blackpool, Chorley, Fleetwood, Forward and Broughton, Garstein, Kendal, Leyland, Longridge, Netherfield, and Settle. So from the weekend, Ian, in terms of some key teams in there, who would you think is going to be knocking on the door this year?
Well, I'm going to be accused of bias here, but I think Fleetwood are looking strong. I know that you've got Bowler Hassan, who unfortunately has got an injury, so that might dent their attack slightly, but they're very strong in terms of what they offer in spin. The new professional, Michael Rippin, he does rip it, according to one or two of the lads I was talking to. They've obviously got Matt Siddle, Declan Clerkin. They've got a really strong lineup. They've got a good batting lineup as well, so I think they're going to be strong, and they've got that momentum of doing well, and obviously winning the Palace Shield and then winning the Northern League. So they've got that momentum, but you've got some big teams in there as well. Like you say, Blackpool you can't really write off, and obviously the professionals. A lot of the clubs will make a big impact as well. So I think it's going to be really competitive. I think it's going to be, it's going to be tough, and it should be. It'll be proper cricket.
I think one thing I've noticed, and I do try and keep my eye on what the overseas are coming in and stuff like that. I may be completely wrong with this assumption, but looking at some of the announcements that were made, it seems to me that there's certain teams in Northern League 1 that have gone, A, we want to win it, but B, now having 2 divisions, this is serious. And there's some very outstanding international players being signed this season. And it just looks to me as if teams are now going, okay, this restructuring is the time where we go, we're serious. There are international players being signed, and we've not had that really for a while. So it just struck to me that some of these teams, and like you say, Fleetwood, defending champ, they're gonna want to withhold that title. But Longridge, pretty unchanged, returning overseas from last year. Who had an excellent season, Tariq Chekte last year.
Yeah.
They'll want to improve on their second place. Netherfield obviously signed Cole I can never remember how McConchie.
Yeah, I think it is McConchie. Yeah,
who was his last international appearance was only last year.
Yeah.
So the big hitters, but you look down that list of teams, and realistically, there's some consistency all the way down that division this year, and it's really going to be key to see who gels early.
It's gonna be tough, and there's talk in the county championship about reducing the number of games in the competition in order to maximize it and focus the minds, and maybe that's what's happened here. But you're absolutely right. I mean, there's already some of these guys that you mentioned. They've already made their mark. I mean, for example, it was a story of two Coles, Candle and Netherfield.
Yeah,
because Cole Abrams got 77 and Colin McConchie got 85. There's some big scores. Just looking, there's so many scores over 200.
Yeah.
I mean, that's obviously down to the weather as well. But obviously, so you can prepare a decent deck. But I think the quality is, as you say, it's going to be quite exciting. Yeah, it's going to be good.
Just touching on some of those results from the weekend, Ian. Obviously, not too many shocks. The one that stands out, which I'm sure everybody will be aware of, is obviously Exton beating Longridge. We're just bigging Longridge up in terms of a little bit of consistency from their part, but albeit obviously, again, to quantify what we're saying, it's the early season cup competition. This isn't the main event by any stretch of the imagination, but that was the one result that probably stood out a little bit. And from an Exton perspective, I know we're talking about Northern League 1, but ultimately, you would suggest that that's going to give them a huge amount of confidence as an early result. So,
very much so. I think Akeem Perryman got 63, Ben Hunton 82 not out.
This is going to be one of those moments, Ian. Sorry, this is going to be one of those moments in a live event. Give me 1 second. My dog is scratching at the door.
Right. Well, whilst Neil's dog is scratching at the door, it was a surprise result. But it's a long time since I was Norcross captain. But I always wanted to play the big teams and the good sides early doors, because I always thought nobody's in any form. You can catch them cold. You've nothing to lose. That's the way. I would have preferred to play it, and it's good that you've got results that are an eye opener, that surprise you, because if it was, you don't want it to be predictable.
Yeah.
I mean, it might well be that the teams that we expect to be at the top of the division could well be at the top of the division, but it's certainly an excellent result for Exton, and it's going to give them a huge amount of confidence going forward.
So, I mean, again, looking at some notable performances and some notable performers, Keegan Peterson getting an unbeaten 99. I'm sure he'd love to have got an unbeaten century on his debut, but unbeaten 99. Saw Chorley rack up a good win. And from that point of view, I saw another prediction, however light-hearted it might have been, on social media, and Chorley weren't at the top of that prediction. It's just surprised me because they've made some good signings. I appreciate they didn't finish particularly high up last year, but I just think some of the signings they've made, and they've hit the ground running, doing well in pre-season friendlies, and certainly did well in that first game of the cup. And I just think that they may be one of my dark horses for Northern League 1 this season.
Yeah, it's a good shout. No, Miller Charles got 51.
Yep.
It's they're a good side. They're a good side. I mean, and that's the the pros will make a big difference. But they're a well organised outfit, aren't they? Surely, they've got some experienced players, but 252 for 4, was it? I think, it's a fairly good score, is that? No, it's that Ian Dunn got 46 for Vernon's.
Still doing it
in there. But yeah, it's going to be it's going to be tough. I think there's one or two teams that you might think, well, they might be looking at bottom half, but you've got something to play for, because you don't want to get relegated. But the teams that do get relegated, maybe it's a chance to step back and rebuild and come back. But yeah, it's very, very early days, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, what somebody who's going slightly off tackle, a little bit of somebody who's caught my eye watching streams and such, like pre-season friendlies. Somebody signed for Leyland, Alexander Eyre, got a few big scores already, got 63.
Yeah, 63, yeah.
And he looks a real decent quality bat, and add together with Sam Oldham going there and Ross Bretherton saying, Luke Hans, young Luke stepping up and performing well. Again, might be another dark horse. I'm not going to put the kiss of death on Leyland, and I know a lot of the lads there, and they might not like me for saying it, but again, looks to be a lot of consistency across the board there. But I mean, looking at that, the list of teams in Northern League One, it could be a really open race this year.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, obviously, I was at Leyland earlier today, and we were talking about it, and obviously they got Carl Cross as captain, and he scored runs, didn't he, at the top of the order?
Yeah.
And he looked well. I was talking to the grounds person there, and they're all very positive, and as all the teams are going to be at this stage.
Absolutely. So I think we'll finish by saying that we think that Northern League One could be just a super competitive division this year. So will be very interesting to see who ends up on top of the pile in September, and what impact some of the pros and overseas make, because there is some big names in there. So good luck to everybody in Northern League One. Northern League Two, now then, the unknown quantity. Make what you will out of this one, because this is a real lucky dip. But you've got obviously a number of teams that went up from the Palace Shield Prem last year into Northern League Two. Some that came down out of the Northern League who might have struggled, and on what we said in that step up, and the reason why Northern League Two was introduced. So go down the teams quickly. Barrow, who finished first in PS Prem last year. Carlisle, who are obviously new. Exton, Great Eccleston, Maudsley, Penwitham, St Anne's, Thornton Cleveland, and Vernon Carras. So it's a real mix here.
It is, and there's some miles in there as well, isn't there, for some of the visiting teams for some of those teams that are a bit further north. I mean, who's to say that Barrow don't do a Fleetwood? They come up from the Prem, and they could well be pushing. But like you said, there's a lot of unknown quantities there, isn't there? And I know that again, it'll be competitive, and there'll be one or two teams obviously that came down that will be wanting to prove a few people wrong. But I've got a sneaking feeling about Barrow, but we'll see.
It really wouldn't surprise you. I mean, obviously Barrow haven't gone for a pro. They've gone for an Indian overseas amateur who I was desperately trying to practice his name before we came on, and I'm not sure I'm going to, because if I get it wrong, I will be in trouble. One thing we did notice, Ian, about Northern League Two is there's quite a few UK pros in there, which we were discussing the merits of and differences of having. So that's going to be interesting to see. And obviously it opens up then the avenue of an overseas amateur to go alongside them. So it's going to be interesting to see. Again, I know I'm going over old ground, what I've touched on before. I do like to see how the overseas are going, but it'll be very interesting to see how the homegrown pros go and whether at the end of this season that becomes more of a thing or not. So it's, what difficult choices to be made.
Yeah, I was talking to some of the lads at Fleetwood, but other clubs as well. And the advantage of it homegrown pro is that you've probably got less expense,
Yeah.
and you've not got some of the challenges with regards to visas,
Yeah.
depending on which country the overseas player is coming from. And it does give you the opportunity of an overseas as well.
Yeah.
So there are advantages there, but some of it can be cost. But I think it's difficult. There are one or two of the people that seek these pros out were saying that it's not just us in this region who are looking for homegrown talent to in that regard, to give them those advantages. So there is competition, to get those players in. But I don't think there's been the same sorts of visa issues that there were, say, 2 or 3 years ago, when there's a bit of a, should we say, clampdown from our friends at the Home Office. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how the homegrown pros go.
I mean, somebody like obviously Ryan Maddock going back to Penn with them, known quantity, as opposed to obviously, like you say, maybe the unknown quantity of getting an overseas pro in, and will they adapt, and etc. etc. So you can definitely see the advantage of going that route. So yeah, it's a very interesting division, and like you, Barrow taking that consistency forward, but at the same time, Vernon's put up a good showing against Chorley. Penwitham pushed Leyland all the way. And obviously, as we mentioned, Exton actually ended up beating Longridge. So, some of those Northern League 2 teams will be feeling pretty good about themselves. And I guess using these games in the Cup to get a gauge of exactly where they are in comparison with some of the other Northern League teams. So, yeah, it would be good to see how these games pan out, and prior to the actual league starting, we have a better idea at that point.
Yeah, it's a good idea. And Ryan Mannock's gone to Birmingham. Obviously, he was, familiar. I used to play against his dad back in the day, but he's going. So he's not, going to a club that's unknown to him, and it's an environment he's not used to. So there's a huge advantage in that particular acquisition.
Yeah, but again, just touching on is what you said about some of the guys coming down out of the Northern League into Northern League 2. People like St Anne's. I'm not saying that the Palace Shield Prem guys won't want to be stepping up to Northern League 1. They will, but is there elements of some of the teams that have been relegated that will see that's, I don't want to use the term below their stature, but there's teams there that aren't used to being out of that Northern League. And I know we've had it, like you said, with Fleetwood dropping into the Palace Shield Prem. It can sometimes act as a spur for these teams to say, okay, yeah, again, we need to really up our game again now. So it'll be interesting to see how some of those teams react. And whether the Palace Shield Prem teams can really kick on and adapt in the manner as to why Northern League 2 has been put in there in the first place. So, yeah, let's see how this Northern League Cup progresses and see how those teams perform against the Northern League 1 teams. And it'll give us a good idea, a good standing as to what's going to happen when the league gets going. On that note, Palace Shield Prem.
Yeah, well, it's a very... that was going to be 10 teams as well at one stage, wasn't it? And then they're now 12 teams. It's tricky because it's a bit of a construct, isn't it? Because of the formation and of the pyramid, etc. But every team that's in there, they're in there on merit, and that's how we start. And it will be interesting to see how some of those teams go. And it's a great opportunity as well for some of those teams. I mean, there's obviously some very well-organised clubs in there, some big clubs. Filed obviously just down the road from me. They're very organised, very progressive. Got a very strong junior section. good social side. But they perform. All the teams across the leagues and in the age groups they do. They do put performances in, so they'll be very strong. They've got that winning mentality, that momentum. They're used to it. So they could well not surprise people, but they could be at the top of that division. Morecambe look pretty strong.
Well, I'll just go through the teams, Ian. Obviously, Burneside new to the league.
Yeah.
Eccleston. So the ones remaining from the Prem from last year are Eccleston, Lancaster, Penrith, Preston, and Torrizone. And then coming out of 1A, we've got Fylde, Heysham, Kirkham and Wesham, Morecambe. Rufford was still in there from the Prem from last year, and Westgate have come up. So you're right. It's a good group of teams. And I agree with you on Fylde. People who have watched some of our Wantley Dale podcasts know full well I don't want to use the word loving for Fylde. That sounds a bit OCP, but I do have an admiration for the way that Fylde have progressed over the last few years, been very forward thinking, and as you say, developing the club in the right way as a total, inside, on and off the pitch. Interesting one for Morecambe. Again, we were talking about overseas. Morecambe have signed a South African guy called David Roeder, and I hope my research is right. And again, apologies, Morecambe, if I've got this wrong, and you can send me a message telling me off. It looks to me on ESPN Cricket Info that he last played first-class cricket in around about 2021. So this is a guy with, who's still playing at a very good level not so long ago. And it seems like it may be a very shrewd signing. And as I say, coming out of 1A as champions, we've talked about Barrow doing it, going from the Prem into Northern League 2, and we talked about Fleetwood doing it previously. A little bit of consistency and forward motion, aligned with a good overseas. It could well be that, Morecambe are a club on the move again.
How old is he, Neil? Just out of interest sake, is he?
He was in his 30s.
Right. So he's an experienced
player. Yeah.
So to judge where he was, I mean, like you say, the last time he played first class.
Yeah.
No, and the thing is about somebody of that vintage. They've got a lot of experience. A lot of know-how. They've played a lot of games. So it's it does sound like it's a good signing. Once won in a bowl out at Morecambe in the national knockout. It chucked it down and won on a bowl out.
Did you hit the stumps?
I didn't get a chance. I was one of the designated bowlers as I was captain back then, and I'd stuck him in because there was a bit of rain around and they were going like a train, right? I was thinking, not a good idea, and it chucked it down and we never got back on. And the way they did it, it was 10 balls and it was five bowlers bowling 2.
Got you.
But they bowled all of theirs first, and then we had to bowl ours.
Right. Okay.
So they'd only hit it. Twice, and so our 2 opening bowlers was Matt Veach and Andy Hill. Said, right, you go on. There was myself, Naveed, who then went to Fleetwood, and my old mate Roger Garlick. So we were like, said, well, we'll hang back. And Matt Veach bowled the first one. It went over never mind, got over the keeper. It nearly went over the side screen because it was wet. And then he hit, and then Andy Hill came on and hit twice, and then did a circuit of the unbelievable. But I've been a couple of times with interleague teams at Morecambe as well. Obviously, they've got a lot of history, and obviously, Northern League and whatever. But they'll be pushing. That's for certain. Yeah.
So as I say, it's going to be interesting to see how those 1A teams progress. How the teams who have remained from the Prem, again, all very, very capable teams in their own way. Some we know have lost a couple of players. Kirkham, I've seen the Hogarth brothers are departed. So, we'll
they've gone to that. England Freckleton, I think.
England Freckleton, which obviously Freckleton being really their home from where they started out. But again, there's been plenty of player movement, so it's just going to be interesting to see who adapts best to that. But yeah, I would go with you. I think Fylde may be a dark horse in there this year. But Morecambe, yeah, I've just got an inkling for them to do a double and see what. But as I say, I'm no disrespect to everybody else in that division, because it's a real, again, much like we said about Northern League 1 and 2, a good bunch of teams. I'm sure Burneside will have something to say about it coming new into the league as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting division again, and good luck to everybody in the Prem. PS1, and we know 1A and 1B anymore. So now we get into the strange numbering systems. But PS1, mix of 1A and 1B teams from last year. I'll quickly run down them. This is where the second team start to come into the equation. Netherfield seconds, Blackpool seconds, Berska new to the league.
Yeah.
Croston, Garstang seconds, Grimsby, Leyland seconds, Longridge seconds, Standish, Tarleton, Thornton Cleveland's twos, and Withnell Fold ex BAC.
Yes. Yeah.
Which, if anybody doesn't know, the BAC's first team from last year, who were playing at Withnell as a ground while BAC is out of order, have actually transitioned and become Withnell Fold first team now. It may cause some confusion, it may not, but yeah. Anyway, there you go. So that's the list of teams. Ultimately, Ian, again, we were talking about it when we were talking about the restructure. Some pretty strong second teams in there, in all honesty.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see if any of the first teams can step up and challenge some of the stronger second teams. Looking at the first teams that are in there, Tarleton, maybe, I know they made a couple of signings over the winter. Maybe they'll be able to challenge. I think you'd mentioned to me maybe about Thornton Cleveland's obviously strengthening the first. There may be some drip down effect into their second team.
Yeah, they've not got a bad second team. You know that you know they could do well. I mean, I think I can't look past Longridge twos, to be honest. I know that they're the not the guinea pig, if you will, but they're the sort of the case in point when we're talking about promotion to a higher division.
Yeah.
And for those of us that have been on the league committee for quite a few years will know that that's something that they've been irrespective of this restructure, this pyramid as it is now, it has been something that they've been knocking on the door with for a while, and quite rightly so, because for the teams in that division, if you know that there's going to be 2 or 3 teams who are just going to be at the top, and you're going to turn up there and you're going to, I'm not saying it's going to be like that, because it's all very new, but for the integrity of the league, people have got to find the level. But yeah, I think Longridge twos will be strong. Obviously, Thornton just round the corner from me will do pretty well in that division as well. But I think it's fairly open.
It is.
But I think the stronger, more traditional Northern League teams will possibly have some advantage of teams that lads that are playing in the first team in the Northern League coming down and playing in the twos. So there is an advantage to that as well.
I'm going to ask you to go out on a limb here, Ian.
Oh, go on.
Do you think any of the first teams in that division will challenge at the top and will oust some of those second teams? So your first teams, you've got a Berska, Croston, Grimsby, Standish, Tarleton, and Withnell Fold.
That's a really good question, and one putting me on the spot, so I don't want to upset anybody or show any bias or favoritism. That's a really great question. It's probably one I'm going to dodge slightly and answer in a politician's way. I can see the top 2 being second teams. I might be wrong, and good luck to whoever finishes in the top two.
Yeah.
But I do think it's there's one or two really strong second team outfits in there. So that's a great question. What do you think, Neil? I'll throw it back at you.
I looking at it, I think it's going to be exceptionally difficult. I think there's a couple of the first teams that could challenge. But yeah, you're right. The second teams that are in there, Blackpool, Netherfield, Garstang, Leyland, Longridge, TC. That's tough.
Yeah.
That's real tough. And like you say, the advantage in terms of player movement that those teams can potentially have is another string to their bow. But yeah, I think there's a couple in there, again, that have made shrewd signings and have good players remaining there. Bersker, obviously, the unknown quantity. We have no idea how they're going to perform.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I mean, obviously, we've mentioned quite a few teams that are unknown quantities.
Yeah,
because of this structure and attracting teams to the leagues, and I think that's great. Because you're playing at different grounds, and it'd be great for some of the first teams that perhaps in that division that have not played at, say, Netherfield.
Yeah.
So you're playing against different clubs. Maybe you've never played against them before, or you're playing at grounds that were Northern League grounds, and maybe you've not played at. And likewise, some of the Northern League teams, traditional Northern League teams, they'll be playing at Power Shield teams that maybe they've not played at. So it's a great experience for the players. I think it's good. That mix, that diversity is good.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're saying it a lot tonight, Ian. It'll be interesting to see how that Division 1 pans out. And obviously there's the Prem that'll be in everybody's sights. I'm very conscious we're spending probably a little bit more in-depth time. We're on to Power Shield 2. Teams are Charnock St James, Chorley seconds, Fleetwood seconds, F&B seconds, Great X seconds, Horton, Inglewood Freck, New Longton, Penwitham seconds, Preston seconds, Vernon Carris seconds, and Ray Green. Now, I do have a bit of knowledge of some of those teams because some of them were playing against our first team last year.
Right.
And I know there's some movement with some of those teams. I mean, obviously the ones that stand out. It'll be interesting to see how Inglewood Freck go with the Hogarth there, and I know they were training at the same time we were at Lucky's, and they look a strong club. Really good net attendance from them, and they looked to be in good fettle. So it'll be interesting to see how they go after a tough time last year when they went up. And I know they didn't make the strides that maybe they thought they might, or maybe they wanted to, should I say. But again, it's the story of first team and second team matchups in there. And I'm sure some of those second teams will feel that they're probably a division lower than they should be. So again, there'll be a carrot dangled there for them to prove themselves. But again, you've got sort of some more established teams in there. Ray Green went up from old Division 2. So did VC seconds, Penwitham seconds, and Horton won it. And I think Horton were maybe the surprise package of the old Division 2 last year, because I don't think when we went into the division, certainly from our perspective, looking at it, I don't think we thought that they were going to be up there. So, can there be a surprise package again? But as I say, looking at that, there is some well-established second teams again, maybe the tail of Division 1 again, well-established second teams that will probably wanting to prove themselves to be at a higher level than where they're going to be starting the season. So, again, is similar story to Division 1, Ian?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned some of the second teams there. I know that there's one or two teams with knowledge of the interleague and juniors and coaching at one or two clubs where they've got some really good young players coming through. I know that, sorry to mention Fleetwood again, but they've got some good young players coming through, which is good to see, as some of the other teams have. Ray Green, they'll be interested. I mean, we played Ray Green last year, and they've got two or three batters in that lineup who are as good as any I've seen for a year or two. So they'll be interested. It'll be interesting to see how they get on. But again, it will be competitive cricket, and obviously, when we do a pod later on, we'll be able to see how it's panned out and have a little bit more to say about what the leagues are looking like. But I think there'll be one or two again second teams that will be looking to get promoted, but that's not to discount the first teams that are in there.
And again, much like we talked about in some of the higher divisions, trickle down effect into some of those second teams. Chorley being in there, for example. Chorley looking strong in the first team will potentially mean their second team will be a strong affair as well. So yeah, again, interesting mix of seconds and first teams in there, and we'll see who comes out on top. And as you say, Ian, maybe the next pod will have a clearer indication of that.
We will.
College Shield 3 teams in there: Exton seconds, Hesketh Bank, Kirkham and Wesham seconds, Lancaster seconds, Longridge thirds, should I say?
Yeah.
Morsley seconds, Norcross, Penwitham thirds, St Anne's seconds, Tarleton seconds, Torrizone seconds, and Walton Dale. This, I think, I've been speaking to Danny, our captain, on this division, and I think it's intriguing. And I think it's intriguing for one reason, because Exton seconds and Morsley seconds were obviously very strong last year because of their respective first teams being in the Northern League. It'll be very interesting to see. We talk about double promotions. We've said it already. I think those two will be, again, very strong in that division. I don't see any changes in players that would suggest that's not going to be the case. I genuinely think, looking at that division, whilst the likes of yourselves at Norcross were competitive last year, Walton Dale, I'm not going to touch on too much because obviously they're my own club, but I know we're hopeful of a pretty successful season this year with strengthening ourselves in a couple of areas. But I've looked at all winter, Morsley seconds and Exton seconds. If they can continue the form that they showed last year, they were pretty unstoppable in the division below last year in getting promotion. They could take it on again this year.
Yeah, I think our first team have got Exton twos at the weekend. I mean, unfortunately for us, our Aussie overseas, who did really well last year, smashing lad as well. He doesn't actually get in until the evening of that game. So okay. I think there's been a logistical issue there. Nothing to do with the chairperson, but yeah, it will be competitive. And we, like other teams, it's whether or not you can keep your best 11 on the park and who's available, and injuries and things like that. But I know that we're looking forward to it. But you're absolutely right. Those teams that you've mentioned there, Maudsley and Exeter, when we were looking at the division and we were looking at all the teams and having a bit of a players meeting and stuff. We felt that it's going to be intriguing and it's going to be competitive, and that's what you want throughout. Whatever it could, first division Northern League, or your Division 7. Is it Division 7 now?
Yes.
You want competitive cricket. You want to find that right level, and you want competitive cricket. That's all we can hope for, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's going to be intriguing, and like you say, sometimes certainly with the Northern League teams or teams with multiple teams in the higher divisions, that availability, and we talk about drip down being a positive thing. Sometimes availability, completely different to drip down, can be a killer for certain teams. So Longridge thirds, Penwitham thirds. If they've got good availability, great. Unfortunately, if you lose a couple higher up for whatever reason, injury,
effect.
God forbid anybody has a wedding or anything like that, it can be a killer. And as we all know, that it only needs one or two missing that sometimes can make a difference. And
sort of Longridge thirds, by the way. If John Simpson of Longridge is watching, sorry I missed your call. I will ring you back. Sorry, Neil, carry on.
Getting that one in there.
By the way, if he's watching this in 2 weeks' time, that's going to make
that's completely irrelevant. But the magic of YouTube. So intriguing division, and it's going to be like you say. I think it's going to be a good competitive division. Ooh. So again, good luck to all those teams. Palashield 4, we have Blackpool thirds, Eccleston seconds, F&B thirds, Fylde seconds, Gregson Lane, Grimsby twos, Leyland threes, South Shore, Vernon Carras threes, Waltondale seconds, Whittingham and Goosner, and Wyre. Our second team are in there. I think after playing in that division, what was Division 3 last year, I think that is, with Maudsley and Exton going up, I think as an all-round competitive division, I think that's going to be a really, really competitive division this year. I think literally anybody within that division can beat anybody on their day.
Yeah. Does anybody sort of stick out and catch your eye?
Well, the one that did catch my eye was Blackpool. Obviously, won Division 4 last year, moving up, and I think Blackpool thirds. I think Mr. Diver would probably concur that they've had a tough couple of years, but they seem to be back to their best in winning that division last year. So I think they could be, again, talking about teams having double promotions. It'd be interesting to see if they can continue that into the step up in division. But again, Whittingham and Goosner, I know a few of the guys there. They finished third in Div 3 last year. They had a strong finish to the season, so I'm sure they'll be wanting to continue that. You've also got Fylde. We talked about Fylde previously, and again, I was
going to say Fylde too.
They will, I am sure, want to. They finished second in Div 4 last year. They'll want to continue their progression. And I can see again them being very strong in that division with player acquisitions in the first team. Again, meaning that the seconds should be stronger as well. But there's competitive teams all the way down there. Grimsby seconds always had good games against them. Some really talented players in that Grimsby second team. South Shore actually ended up lower than I thought they did last year, because they, again, when we played them as a second team last year, South Shore were, again, very competitive, well led by Maz. I just think it will be probably, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, the most competitive division in the league this year.
Right.
I just have a feeling that will be an incredibly close division this year. I may be proved wrong, and somebody may just run away with it. But I just have a gut feeling, and there you go. I'll put it out there in the pre-season pod, and I'm there to be shot down on that one. But again, good luck to everybody in PS4. Palashield 5, Bretherton, Chorley thirds, Horton seconds, Inglewood Freck seconds, Leyland Force, Longridge Force, New Longton seconds, Norcross seconds, Standish seconds, TC threes, Coppice, and Whittle. Again, you look at those, and that again could be another competitive division. You know, teams that have the right wherewithal in terms of setup, in terms of background, like Chorley, like Leyland, like Longridge, Thornton Cleveley's. Obviously, Cleveley's came up out of 5 as winners last year. So there's obviously, and I think you've mentioned before, some talented juniors again coming through at Cleveley. So I'm guessing that was the part of the bedrock of that success last year for them. Again, talking about Inglewood Freckleton strengthening their first. They came up as second place out of Div 5 into that division last year. Again, your seconds making a bit of a comeback here after a tough few years. And they made a comeback last year as well. So it's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for us. We've signed quite a few players. I mean, not to sort of bang on about Norcross, but we've actually got a third 11 this year that we're sharing Baines with our good friends Fylde thirds, Andy Lowe there, sorting that out. So there's competition definitely for places, and then you've got people playing regular Saturday cricket that can come in. That's the difficulty with two teams. Where are you fetching your players from? I know we've got a Sunday team, but we have signed a number of players, and there's one or two that look like they could get in the first team, never mind in the second team. So we'll see. But I know Harsh had a real go at it last year, and there was things that we knew that sort of just let us down once or twice, but we'll see. But it because of the changes to the divisions, it can sometimes it's difficult to contrast and compare, isn't it? Because of all the changes, which is exciting in a way, because there's a lot of unknowns as well. There's a lot of expectations from some of the teams, but it's that element of the unknown as well, which is good.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, Coppice have signed quite a few players because they've introduced a second team of their own. So it'd be interesting to see how they go. And then obviously we've talked about strong junior setups. Both Chorley and Leyland Force finished 4th in Div 5 last year. So the ones with strong junior setups, you only need 2 or 3 talented juniors at that level can make a massive impact as well. So again, the contrast between the teams, 3rd, 2nd, 4th teams, and the first teams of the likes of Bretherton and Coppice and Whittle. Interesting contrasts, and again, an intriguing league to look at. And it'll be interesting to see how your guys go on. You've let a bit go there, Ian, about new players, and you seem a bit bullish about chances.
Well, you've got to be fairly positive. I mean, I'm miserable quite a lot of the time, and I'm always focusing on the negative, because there's always stuff that needs to be done, as you know, Neil. So, but yeah, I think there is a bit of positivity. I think what's helped us as well is that we've had some improvements at the ground. We had a sort of a patio area, sort of decking area, and we've got a bit of a bar area there as well now. So that might help in recruitment and retention, and we've had some drainage work done. So, hopefully those that are visiting Norcross will have a slightly better match day experience. But I'm not going to say, oh, we're going to do this, that, and the other. I'm going to say that I'm hoping that we will be competitive.
Good. Well, again, good luck to everybody in Palashield 5. Palashield 6 is where I shall be playing my cricket this year. BAC Preston, obviously now their first team. Now their previous first team have migrated to Withnail Fold. Charnock seconds, Fylde thirds, Garstang thirds, Great Eck thirds, Penwortham fourths, Rufford seconds, St Anne's thirds, Tarleton thirds, Waltley Dale thirds, Withnail seconds, and Ray Green seconds. So a real mix in there. And I know from speaking to our 13 captain, Elliot Tailforth, he was saying how there's a number of teams in that we got promoted from 6 to 5, but then now back in 6 because of the renumbering. But there's a lot of teams that went up the previous season from 6 to 5 that obviously Elliot is aware of. So he knows quite a few of those. And again, he's also stressed that he thinks that will be a very competitive division this year. There was a lot that went up out of 6 because of the restructuring. So, but at the top of 6 last year, it was very, very close. It went right down to the last day. So it was a really close division. I think there was probably 5 teams at the top of Division 6 that were all much of a muchness. So those going up a division, I don't think there's much of a weakening in that division in terms of the teams that have moved out because of the restructuring. So again, going over old ground, it's going to be completely dependent on the bigger teams in inverted commas, your Garstangs, your Fyldes, your St Anne's, in terms of their resources moving down to their 3rd and 4th teams. Penwortham as well, for example. So it's going to be interesting to see how those resources pan out. As you've mentioned before, in terms of juniors, who has the run of juniors coming through at any given time? Because whilst we said it only takes 2 or 3 juniors, obviously some clubs go through spells where, unfortunately, the quality of junior coming through just maybe isn't where you want it to be for one of your teams in that certain division. So it's really going to be interesting to see what the makeup of teams are like this year. But again, Elliot was quite keen to point out that he felt it would be a very interesting division to see where those teams that went up the year before had progressed to. But yeah, it's there's some teams in there that I haven't played in a long time, so it's going to be interesting to see. Some grounds I haven't visited in a long time as well. So yeah, looking forward to it. We played with Null on Sunday in a friendly. So we were up there, and the ground was looking superb, by the way. Outfield was like it just ran so well. You beat the infield, it was 4. It was so thanks to Withnell for hosting, but well done on your ground. It was looking in absolutely superb condition. So whoever's going to Withnell first week, whether it be in first or second team, you're going to have a top ground to play on if the weather holds, shall we say. So now it was looking in tip-top condition. So yeah, it's I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be some new teams to play, but like you say, a bit of intrigue. Let's see how that pans out. But yeah, I think we can have. I think we're hoping we're blooding a couple of juniors this year, so we're hoping for maybe more of a development year after getting promotion. I say development. I mean, realistically, half the team's over 40, so I mean, there's not that much development in it. So. But I'm pretty sure there may be some others of a similar ilk across that division. So yeah, hopefully catch up with some old faces and have a good season from that point of view. So again, PS6, good luck. And the bottom division, that sounds awful. I shouldn't really term it as that. Palace Shield 7, Blackpool Force, Berska seconds, Croston seconds, Greggy Lane seconds, Hesketh Bank seconds, New Longton 3s, Norcross 3s, as you said, New Ian, Penwitham 5th, Preston Strikers, not new to the league, but new to Saturday cricket, VC 4ths, Coppice seconds, and Wyre seconds. So we have got 4 new teams in that division. Berska seconds, Norcross 3s, Preston Strikers, and Coppice seconds. So the league's growing.
It is.
I'm going to do my second going out on a limb of this podcast and say that I think Preston Strikers will be hard to beat in that division.
Well, that's interesting because we played them in a friendly on Sunday, posted 118, and it was a good game. We had them 50 odd for one, and they were flying. And we had a 9 down in the end, but it was a really good competitive game. I know when the Preston Strikers sort of started, I did quite a few bats for Preetham, who runs the show there, and he was explaining that he wanted to start a Sunday team, and if that went well, then he would go into the Saturday team, because there was a lot of the players that played a lot of Parks cricket, urban cricket. Yeah. You turn up, you play, and that kind of thing, and that was covered. I did some stuff with Lancashire on diversity, which was absolutely fascinating. And there was a lot of that, that came out, and obviously Lancashire trying to tap into where that talent is, and not down the traditional league structure. But yeah, he basically said if it goes well and they get into that sort of that regime, and they're all decent lads, and it's great to see them in that division. And I had a really good chat with him after our game on Sunday, when half the players were painting sight screens. I was doing the diplomatic thing by chatting to opposition captains. But yeah, I'm really pleased for them. I'm hoping they don't whack our third team, but they did play well. That they play a positive brand of cricket.
Yes.
They bowl well. There was some decent bowling on show. There was a leg spinner that was absolutely ripping it. But yeah, it was a good game. But yeah, it will be interesting to see. I mean, and there's some good grounds in there as well.
Absolutely.
Just have a look down that list. there's some super grounds that you can go to. I know obviously we'll be sharing Baines with filed threes, and it's an artificial wicket and this sort of thing. Well, they are looking at getting new sight screens, I believe there. But there are some really nice grounds to go to as well. So that's great for that Division 7.
We played Preston Strikers in the T20 last year, and they looked a very capable outfit. In fact, I think they beat us. In fact, yes, they did by about 20 runs. I just think they'll be. I know they've had to start in the bottom division, but again, talking about club teams generally across the league finding their position, their rightful position. It would surprise me if they weren't up there at the end of the season. Let's put it that way.
And I think from a facilities point of view, am I right in thinking they're looking at Grasshoppers? I think they're doing some work there, and my understanding, talking to him Sunday, is that they're looking to take that over and
okay. I hadn't heard.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. So that'd be
interesting. But yeah, as I say, other than that, real good mix of teams, like you say, some good grounds in there. Bursker, Croston. I mean, anybody travelling to Croston to play a second team game in Division 7 will have a rare treat. Playing there. So good luck to them. And as I say, again, I'm sure there'll be plenty of development. I don't want to call it development cricket. Plenty of opportunity and development given in that division. And as I say, there's some teams very much well known for doing that across that division. So it will be very interesting to see how that pans out for certainly some of those new teams and some of the established ones. So, and that, Ian, is 2 Northern League divisions and 7 Palace Shield divisions done.
Yeah, I think going forward, I mean, obviously we've done a bit of a review, haven't we, on this, inaugural, pyramid pod. Talking to a lot of people as you have. I mean, obviously this podcast can be, anything that anybody wants it to be. We take suggestions, keep them clean. But in all honesty, we're not obviously just here to regurgitate stuff that's on the Northern Pyramid website or whatever. I mean, we've spoken about probably maybe even getting a 1 or 2 guests on and things like that. We might be looking at some of the cup results, for example, or some junior stuff. I know we've not mentioned juniors, interleague as well, because that's being done differently and organised differently this year. I'm very much involved in that, looking after the under 11s. So there's lots of things that we're going to be doing. We're not just going to be going through every single result of every single division, because that might take us a long time. So bear with us, and no, it's a good thing that hopefully the league will support and get behind us, and we'll hopefully turn it into what people want to see.
Absolutely, and as I say, only to back up what Ian says, if anybody's got any ideas moving forward, by all means contact either of us or the league and give us some feedback. That's what we're here for. And as I say, hopefully it won't be, as Ian says, just regurgitating the same old stuff pod after pod. We want to keep it a little bit lighter. Hour and 13 minutes so far. Hopefully we can keep it under an hour next time, and just concentrate on matters that are more prevalent. And as I say, guests are more than welcome. So please send us some feedback.
I think it's interesting actually, because I think if we were approached at the very back end of the dinner at Ribby Hall, and we were asked if we'd be sort of interested, and obviously here we are. But we did say that we're not just going to be focusing on the top Northern League division and the Prem and this, that, and the other. We wanted to cover the whole pyramid. Not that there was a pyramid back then, but the whole structure. And hopefully there'll be something for everybody. Obviously, we're going to be mentioning the top division But yeah, it's hopefully we can dip in and there'll be different things that we focus on, and like Neil says, it can be anything that you want it to be. Any suggestions, any feedback, always
100%. We're going to finish on a little bit more of a somber note, but hopefully throw a couple of light-hearted things in as well. You today attended the funeral of Colin Dober, much loved character around the league, much admired. Certainly from my perspective, I had many run-ins with Colin, both as an umpire, as me running district teams, and Colin helping me out. And I know you have had lots of interaction with Colin. So if you just want to lead off and just give us some thoughts on Colin as a person.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'm very much involved in junior cricket, and his support of junior cricket really is it's fantastic, the job that he did over so many years. We used to I used to run the probably for about 20 years, but civil service cricket competitions with Curtis Bennett, and we had a side from Blackpool and Fylde, and we'd go all over, and we dragged Colin along to umpire for us, and we had some right good trips on that. But he was very positive and keen, dead interested in what you were doing and stuff like that. And particularly when Jeremy was coming through as well, he always asked me, was always very supportive of that. It was, good turnout, really good turnout at Charnock Richard today. And then the wake back at Leyland Cricket Club. So yeah, it was somber. But, it was one of those, it was sad to see him go. He'd been struggling for quite a few years, sadly. So it is pretty sad, but yeah, it's a bit of a stalwart and he was certainly a character. Yes. In both, he wasn't, he wouldn't hold back with his opinions, and it's sad to see him go, but it was a good turnout, and rest in peace, Colin.
I just want to echo your comments in terms of basically just his interest. He was always interested in what was going on with your cricket, with, like you said, with your son's progression. He would always ask how my kids were going on, even after they'd left Leyland. He was just always interested and was always keen. And I know we all are, but Colin was a true cricket character. Even towards the end of his umpiring, well, let's just say his eyesight and his hearing might have been failing him a little bit. He was absolutely adamant he was always right, and you would never sway him. But that was just the demeanour of the guy, and as you say, he was cricket through and through. And as I say, I hope that the guys. I'm sad I couldn't make it myself. But I just I hope it was a good send off for him, and he got the send off that he deserved, because he gave so much to cricket and football, I believe. Obviously, I wouldn't know as much about his football, but a couple of guys, obviously Pete Ingham, told me a lot about him in football perspective. But he gave so much to sport, shall we say, in this local community. So people
over many years, many
over so many years. So. So condolences to everybody at Leyland and the broader community and his family. Colin will be missed. So just to finish on, Mr. Diver putting me right on something. 10 divisions we've gone through. Yeah, so I didn't say the exact number, but that makes us feel a little bit prouder, Ian, that we've managed to get through that.
Well, to be honest, it's good to see that at least one person is watching.
Absolutely, it's nice that Mr. Diver actually is giving us some feedback. So thank you, Alex. We do
for inaccuracies of delivery.
Picking us up on faults. It is what it is. So that's episode 1 done. We've managed to plough through it. an hour and 20. It's been a long haul, but it was always going to be for the first one.
Yeah.
So as we've said, feedback's great. Any feedback, constructive, please. Not just pure abuse. That wouldn't go down so well. But yeah, we will endeavour to be back with maybe some of your ideas. We'll always keep it as lighthearted as we can. And yeah, thanks for watching. Ian, thanks for joining me.
Brilliant. Always a pleasure. And all the best to everybody that's starting this weekend. Fingers crossed for the weather, but it looks like it's going to hold.
Yes, may you have good weather. May you not get a golden duck. May you have all the right umpiring decisions. But most of all, may you have fun, because that's what we're all here for.
Play to enjoy it.
And enjoy the field with your friends and your teammates. So, Pyramid Pod, episode 1 in the books. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.
Take care.